Hi everybody, welcome back to Hobby Farm in the Heights. Today is a very blustery, windy day here in southeastern Washington. A typical spring day, I must say. It's been windy for the last few days now. And so it's a perfect time to be in the greenhouse. It's a little bit noisy, but not too bad today. You can get some cross ventilation. I made sure I didn't open too many windows because I don't want the wind coming through and wrecking my plants. As you can see over here, we do have some plants. We have some nice sprouts over here. We have some squashes, some pumpkins, some cantaloupe, some cucumbers coming along nicely. Over here you can see some basil in here and some zinnia seeds sprouted. You'll notice my various containers that I'm using. And we have some good lettuce sprouts here. When it's not so windy, we're going to start hardening those off to stick them out in the garden. I do have the radishes up. Remember, I planted radishes last week. I think it was on the 21st or 22nd. And I have radishes. And we talked about how the leaves are going to be heart-shaped. They're kind of heart-shaped. They almost look like a little butterfly coming up out of the ground. They're very pretty, and I can't wait to eat them. Be so tasty. So there's a couple things I want to talk to you guys about today regarding sowing seeds. Sometimes it's not as straightforward as the package would like you to think. I know most of the packages, they say put in soil, cover with 1/4 inch, and put in a sunny window, and voila, you'll have plants. I tend to think it's more technical than that. I haven't had much success with the method of just reading the back of a seed package and going with that. I am a firm believer in supplemental light. I have never had great luck, as I say, with just putting things in a sunny window, and it could be just because I'm far enough north here in southeastern Washington that we don't have enough light hours to get the plants to enough sunlight, and they get really leggy. And so you can see my husband helped me rig up a nice little grow light here, and I have it a few inches off. Those flat of plants that I showed you back there, those were sitting right here, right under the light, doing really well. But like I said, I've never had great success with just putting them in a sunny window in my house. Of course, I am a boy mom, and often the seedlings would get hit with a ball, or, you know, things happen when you have boys in the house. And yeah. Out here, they're semi-safe. They don't come out to the greenhouse. The boys don't come out to the greenhouse very often. So they're kind of safe from the footballs and the various projectiles, Nerf bullets, yeah, that they like to shoot around. But anyway, back to the seed packets. A good example of this is, I'm going to show you pansies. I love pansies. They're very versatile. I have some growing that had self-sown over the winter, and they're blooming. But pansies need complete darkness in order to germinate. And so I actually have a flat of pansies inside my house in my laundry room on top of my freezer, so it's got that warmness coming from the freezer, but I have a blanket over them. I do check them to make sure that they have enough moisture, but on the back of your seed packet, it won't tell you that. It won't tell you that pansies need darkness in order to germinate. And so I would encourage you, if there's a specific plant that you're interested in growing, do a little research to see what it specifically needs. The power of the internet is wonderful for things like this, to educate yourselves, like pansies or anything else that you're trying to grow that you think, well, you know, the seed packet says, literally, I'll read the back of the seed packet. Keep soil moist until germinated, then water as needed. That is their growing tip, not that it needs darkness to germinate. It says planting depth 1/4 inch and thin to 7 to 10 inches apart. Yeah, not enough information. So you would be very, very disappointed. You would plant all these seeds and wait and wait and wait, and you would be very disappointed. Another thing to look up is the germination time it takes. Some seeds can take up to 3 weeks to germinate, and you can be already discouraged and thinking, oh, it didn't work. I'm just going to toss them and try something else. Do some research. Think, okay, let's look up this specific thing and say, is it Does it take a long time to germinate? Let's do some investigation before you give up and get discouraged on that. Another thing I'd like to talk about is an herb garden. That is something that is fairly easy to grow and get going, and I use herbs all the time when I'm cooking. I have my herb garden right outside my kitchen because the handier it is, the more you'll end up using it. And so think of the things that you often pull out of your cupboard that you're going to use to cook with. I use a lot of rosemary with my beef, or thyme with chicken, things like that. Or if you notice recipes that use specific herbs, look those up, see what they need to grow. I know a lot of people love growing mint, and this is my little public service announcement regarding mint. Mint needs to be contained or it will take over everything. I have 3 different kinds of mint currently growing: a chocolate mint, a peppermint, and a spearmint, and they are each in 3 individual pots. Why? Because they grow like crazy and will take over your entire bed. They're like a ground cover. And so unless you want your entire space that you have covered with mint, I would suggest putting them in a pot and growing them that way, and you can keep harvesting as you will. So another one you can see over here, I think I showed you already, my basil seeds. I use lots and lots of basil. I grow lots of basil. These I'll actually be able to separate out carefully with a popsicle stick to make individual plants. I won't have to thin them out and just kill the plant. I hate thinning and killing plants. I don't like to kill plants. Anyway, but I use lots of basil, and my little tip for growing basil, and as the summer goes I'll show you more, but every time I go to the garden, when I have them out in my garden, I pinch basil. And the reason I do that is it makes healthier bushy plants, and they don't just sprout and go to seed. And so I usually by the end of the season have basil plants about 2 feet tall by 2 feet wide normally, and that's just your regular Italian large leaf basil, and it's pretty tasty. And you can make pesto and tomato basil soup. That's my favorite. Anyway, so different herbs. I do have some rosemary sprouting too. It hasn't germinated yet, but I do have that because I want to get it going. Rosemary is a tender perennial. You have to look up your zone, your growing zone on the USDA site to see what zone you're in. My zone, if we have a kind of a mild winter, I can get my rosemary to overwinter without doing too much. 2 winters ago, I didn't protect mine enough. We had a really harsh cold winter and it killed my rosemary plant, which was very sad. It was like 3 feet tall, so it had been growing for a few years. And so I need to get another one going, and this time I will bring it into the greenhouse for winter. But the winter sowing project that I have going outside, I'd love to show you, but it's way too windy and the video would never catch it because it'd be too loud. But I do have a couple of the jugs who already have some sprouts, so I'm pretty excited about that experiment going on. Have you guys tried any of those experiments yet? I'd be very curious to see how yours is going. I think that's about all for today, until I have some more time to get outside or not be such a wuss and get out in the wind, but I'd rather work in the greenhouse when it's nasty. So hope you all are enjoying your spring wherever you are, and if you have any questions you can always comment on and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can.